We all know no matter what job that we are recruiting for, every one of them has hard skills. You got to be able to fix this stuff. But the differentiator on something that's between hiring somebody for their skill and hiring somebody for their smile or their attitude, I think is the differentiator between a short-term and a long-term career with an organization. But for me, I think it really is a lot about a person's willingness to learn, to be coached, to accept feedback.
1 equals 3. 1 great team member equals 3 mediocre team members. If you take what Julie said, her approach, which is slow down to make sure we find that 1, you just reduced your workload by 1/3. Hello, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the Wisdom of Wrench podcast. My name is Kevin Comerford, and I am your host for today. And as always, I have in studio, behind the mic, behind the screens, Andrew Zaragoza, who will be the voice of the people and be asking questions as he sees fit. Welcome, Andrew.
Thank you, Kevin. And really quick, thank you everybody that's recently clicked subscribe. Welcome to the Wisdom of Wrench podcast. I am so ecstatic with the growth of this show, and everyone that has clicked like and clicked subscribe and left a comment, all that stuff within Wrench, outside of Wrench, whoever you are, I sincerely appreciate that, because this has been one of the coolest experiences behind, the audio board and stuff. And so I really appreciate that. And today we have an awesome show, Kevin.
We do. Excited to get to it. I just want to add one thing to that. You told me some stats that we've now achieved what only 2% of all podcasts have ever have ever achieved.
Yeah. So if you take the active YouTube channels right now, this is all YouTube channels. Think gaming channels. Think all the brain rot that's out there, stuff that just gets thrown around. Less than 5% cross this threshold of being 500 subscribers and over 3,000 watch time hours. 5%. And then if you take that to all podcast or all YouTube channels that have ever existed, it's like 2%.
That's great.
So again,
we're going to be talking. Yeah. We're going to be talking millions here shortly.
Yes,
Andrew.
sir.
I love it. Okay, but to the accomplishment is really awesome. So let's get back to our business at hand today. Great podcast today. Looking forward to it. It's a special show because it's what I call a Wrigley's episode, where we're going to double our pleasure and double our fun. What I mean by that is we have both a culture concept we're going to talk about, and Andrew, we've got a special guest. Yeah? Double your pleasure, double your fun. For those of you that are around in the 70s and 80s like me, double your pleasure, double your fun with Wrigley's Spearmint Gum. I like it.
Yeah, they always had twins in the commercials.
Always had twins. Yes. So today is one of my very favorite topics in all of the world. It's actually one of the top 3 things that I spent my week doing when I was the CEO of Service Champions, when I was regional managers in other companies that I worked for. This topic that we're going to discuss today is so important. And it is all around hiring and recruiting. And if you ever have heard the concept that we're in the people business, boy, oh boy, is that right? And this right here is where it shows up the most. I learned something when early in my career, and I actually learned it from the McDonald's organization, and how they kind of looked to, they absolutely had a specific metric that they wanted their managers to spend certain amount of times in certain areas. And it went like this. They wanted their key executives and key managers of the restaurants to spend 33% of their time recruiting. Yes. Let me say that again. 33% of their time recruiting. 33% of their time training or developing training materials for their people. 11% supervision, 11% administration, 11% motivation, and then 100% of the time they want them to be marketing. their concept. And what they said is, with this focus, 33, 33, 11, 11, 11, we wanted to shift our leaders away from the day-to-day fry cooking into true organizational leaders. We wanted to focus our managers on working on the business rather than in the business. And they said, and their outcome after they'd done this for years and years and years at Hamburger University was what it allowed them to do was build self-sustaining teams that could run the restaurant without the leader's intervention. Let me say that again. Build a self-sustaining teams that could run the restaurant without the leader's intervention. What that sounds like to me is a concept I learned from Dan Sullivan in the entrepreneur world, where he really talks about the self-managing company and how you get a self-managing company and the importance of finding these leaders who understand this time percentage concept that we just talked about. Boy, we could spend a lot of time on this, but my gosh, we got a great guest. Andrew. Okay, I got to tell you though, this concept of this self-managing company, I want to just touch on one more thing, and then we're getting to our guest, I promise. Self-managing company. Okay, does that mean that I don't need to be around at all then as the leader or the entrepreneur? Well, you certainly need to be checking things. My buddy, Steve Burbridge, who ran a $100 million business in Kansas City, shared it this way to me. He always looked at himself as a glider, or excuse me, his business as a glider. And he was the air that would have to come back in at times and lift the glider up. He would get the glider to run by itself, and it could cruise. It could be self-sustaining. But eventually, without the leader, it begins to wane. And then the leader needs to come in and lift it back up. So that was his job. He always felt, I want to build a glider, but I recognize I need to be the air underneath the glider that still comes in and lifts the spirits, lifts the team, lifts and reminds of our core values and the integrity that we want as an organization. So thank you, Steve Burbridge. Thank you. All right, Andrew, we're getting to our special guest. Again, the topic today is recruiting, and specifically it is hire for attitude, train for skill. Or, as our special guest likes to say, hire for the smile, train for skill. Those two concepts totally aligned. Our special guest, Andrew, it's a special one. It's Julie Anderson. We have Julie Anderson. She is the Senior Vice President of Talent Strategy and Organizational Development inside of Olive Wrench. We're talking out of Sarasota, Florida. She spent her entire career in recruiting and leadership development in retail, staffing, and now the trades. This woman spent 23 years at Macy's in their heyday and was quick to remind me before we started, and Kevin, they're coming back. They're because as everybody knows, Macy's had an incredible run, okay? And they dipped, and now they're coming back. And Julie was quick to point that out. So I'd love to welcome to our show, Julie Anderson. Welcome, Julie.
Hello, Kevin. How are you? Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to get to talk about my absolute favorite topic, just like you, talent acquisition, learning and development, people. So I'm thrilled to be here.
Love it. Okay, we're going to really dig in. And before we do, I'd love for you, I gave a little bit of your background, Julie, but if you could kind of fill in the gaps a little bit for us with your background. Where'd you grow up? how'd you get in the trades, etc.
Yeah.
How'd you go from Macy's to getting into the trades? What?
Right. Yeah, it's an interesting career path. I mean, I think it goes all the way back to, watching my parents be entrepreneurs. They were business owners. My dad worked in corporate America, made the decision to kind of leave that and get into the entrepreneurial world and own a vending business in Tampa, Florida,
Mm.
all along the beaches. And my brother and I had to come in and fill vending machines every single summer when our friends were enjoying their time. So work ethic, that's kind of where it all began for me. Graduated from Florida State University, go Noles, and got a degree there in clothing, textiles, and merchandising, which led me into really thinking I was going to take a management career path. So graduated, went to work for a regional company called Burdines, which anybody from Florida for any length of time would know. They were acquired by Macy's, thus the long career with Macy's. And interestingly, I ended up transitioning and getting into the world of HR and spend the lion's share of my time at the Macy's organization within learning development, executive leadership, entry-level leadership, stores, what we would call field training, stores, retail, associate training. And just it was an incredible organization with incredible people. And we talk about, how I got my roots. That's exactly where it was to set me on the trajectory that became my career. Had a couple iterations, and then really kind of followed in my dad's footsteps, interestingly enough, and decided to go the entrepreneurial route and joined a startup staffing agency called Broadstaff. And that's really where my teeth sunk in to talent acquisition. Also did some L&D with them as well. And, really gave me a real insight into what it takes to hire the right people, especially when you're doing it for another business. So your skin in the game is a little bit deeper. So, really led that organization and grew that organization. Had a great experience there as well. And then got a knock on my door through mutual acquaintances, and Ken Haynes called me and asked me to join the wrench team and really open up a void, I think, in the organization, which was a focused effort on talent acquisition and recruiting in the trade space, which, as we all know, the struggle is real, and I'm sure we'll dive into that as we get deeper into our conversation. And have had just an incredible 5 years building an amazing team of recruiting leaders, and then obviously our recruiters in each of our locations. So that's kind of how I came to be sitting in this chair talking to you.
Mm, great. What a great career. Uh, what made you interested when Ken called in the trades? Like
You know,
someone, because I have a perception, and I
mhm,
mean I don't have as much of perception as I think the outside world, because I'm in the
mhm,
trades, but
yeah.
there's perception like, wait, Macy's, classy retail, trades,
Mhm. Right.
grimy, dirty. So what was it that intrigued you, or
Well,
that?
I think it came back to just wanting to try something new. Even though what my father did was not a traditional trades, it was going out and working a route, working, in the space, customer service, making sure those machines were filled to drive the revenue that, those machines created to raise me. So there was, I think that spirit existed within me very young. Um, I actually am married to a tradesman. He started his pool business when he was very young and created a very successful pool business. Again, trades focused, route focused, residential focused, customer focused.
Uh-huh.
And so when the opportunity came, it didn't really feel foreign to me. It didn't feel like something I would have to learn. It just was what I kind of known and deeply respected. I
Mm,
think COVID played a role in that. I was in the telecom industry when COVID happened and saw how those essential workers in the telecom industry really were needed, and that just translated nicely into what, at the time, the skilled trades, HVAC, plumbing, and electrical were also experiencing. So it felt very natural to me to actually do that. You love the Macy stuff, and you love the clothing, and you love the fashion, but I think at my core, I think that's who I just kind of really really relate with, and that's why it was a natural transition for me to move into the role.
And real quick, guys, how big was Wrench 5 years ago?
Ooh, Kevin, me.
Yeah.
I don't know the exact numbers, but I think that it was kind of it was in a massive growth straight, a growth place, Andrew, because of COVID. I think that there was this essential need for, obviously, people in that industry, because everybody moved home, right? Kevin, I'm telling the story that I'm sure you've told 1,000 times. And when you're flushing your toilets a lot more, right? And you need the AC working. And for me, in telecom, you needed much more bandwidth within your home because you had so many people inside the house working on that Wi-Fi unit. But I think at the time, that was when I think Wrench saw an amazing, surge, in the organic business that was happening. And then I'm sure Ken and his team saw the opportunity for additional acquisition opportunities. So financially, I don't know the number specifically, but it was definitely a growing industry in 2021, and thus the need for someone to come in and really focus on acquisition of talent, and that's really why the division was begun in 2021.
I know that we were the ninth brand acquired. Service Champions was in June 30th, and then they've acquired over 30. So it
Sprouted a little bit there.
yes.
So the reason for that initial question was to ask you, Julie, was it intimidating when Ken Haynes, the captain of the ship, calls you directly and says, "Hey, do you want to take control of all of this?"
Well, of course. I think anytime you get a call from that level, it certainly is. Um, But I also understood the need because at the time when Broadstaff opened, there was a massive need for telecommunication staffing to be increased. And so I kind of knew the story, what Ken was sharing with me of the opportunity within this, world of the trades that Wrench and its partner brands, function within. So intimidating, yes and no. Intimidating because there was a lot of openings and there was a lot of need. Demand was certainly exceeding capacity at that time. So needing to come in and hire fast and hire well, but also hire quality, and really get the buy-in from the partner brands, and really shifting the way that they were functioning in talent, from where they were, and where I believed we needed to go in order to beat this competition of talent in our industry.
And what I think, Andrew, what I've seen with the people that Ken has hired, and in Ken in particular,
Mhm.
different than a lot of executives, the business clearly is in Julie's blood, right? You heard her say about her father, her husband. And the key word there is that I heard Julie say is the respect that she has for the tradesperson, the
Right.
respect, because I've seen it having worked for other companies other than Wrench, when the executives lose sight or lose respect for, hey, it's that person that's belly to belly with the client that is our real customer. That's our real customer. And
Mhm.
so clearly, Julie, the fact, just some of the things that you shared, it's no wonder that Ken was, hey, I gotta have this woman on board. That's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. Yep.
Great. So let's get back to the topic, if we could. I appreciate all the intro. Um, let's talk about recruiting in the trades specifically,
Mhm.
and this idea of hire for attitude, train for skill, hire for the
Mhm.
smile, train for skill.
Sure.
What are some of the traits that we're really looking for And I know you and I are both on the same page with a book that was written out there by a gentleman by the name Patrick Lencioni. And you actually, when I shared the book with you, you said, "Gosh, this is so much like the STAR program that we had at Macy's." And
Sure.
so
Right.
again, alignment.
Yeah.
But specifically, if we want to talk about the traits, what are we looking for? And then I can also add in some flavor on the Lencioni book because where my whole career has been based around that, about
Yeah.
looking for those. And I know you had a lot with regards to the
Mhm.
STAR plan. So
Mhm.
I'll let you share traits.
Yeah. So I think this is, it's not a new concept, right? We all know no matter what job that we are recruiting for, that we are looking to embark upon, every one of them has hard skills, right? Hard skills are going to be there, right? In our world,
Mm.
there's a multitude of them. And I would be remiss to not say that those two are incredibly important. And we need to make sure, if for nothing else, the safety of our customers and the safety of our teams, right? That they have to have some good skills that are in place. But
And
I
just so I
do
understand,
think
you're talking like technical skills.
technical
You
skills,
you got
yeah.
to be able to
Yeah.
fix the stuff.
You gotta
Yeah,
be able to fix this stuff, right? You gotta
yeah.
be able to fix this stuff. You gotta know how to, in our world, the phrase, turn the wrench, doing all of those things. And I don't mean to belittle it by saying something so minimal. It is a very technical, it's almost a STEM job in a lot of ways. So there
Mm,
are technical skills that need to be vetted for, that need to be understood, and that need to be solid.
mm,
But the differentiator on something that's between hiring somebody for their skill and hiring somebody for their smile or their attitude, I think is a differentiator between a short-term and a long-term career with an organization, right? Um, I always struggle with calling what I do filling jobs, right? I really look at this that I am filling somebody's, career potential. One of my favorite questions to ask is, what do you want to be when you grow up? I
mm.
always ask people that, and I don't care if you're 25, 35, 45, or 55. What do you want to be when you grow up? And I think that leads into really making people think about, the characteristics of the role, beyond, the technical skill that's associated with that. So I think that there are a lot of those competencies, those characteristics of what makes a person good at their job outside of the hard skills, and you can call them soft skills. That's kind of an old '90s term, but the soft
Mhm,
skills that are out there. I think for me, again, Kevin, there are so many, but for
mhm,
me, I think it really is a lot about a person's willingness to learn. I
mm,
think it's about a person's willingness to be coached. I think it's a person's willingness to accept feedback. I think it's a person's willingness to understand that, you know, they do have opportunities to grow, even
mm,
though they've been doing this for 10, 15, 20 years. And I think that those characteristics, in addition to many, many others, but those primarily for me, I think foundationally kind of, come into what Patrick talks about,
mm,
with humble, hungry, and smart, which I know we're going to kind of dial into. I always say that a mind once expanded by a new idea never regains its original dimensions.
mm.
And I truly believe that that is a foundational way to think in order to embrace those three characteristics that we have there: coachability, willing to have feedback, and realizing I can grow and I can be better than I am today.
Love it.
That's what I look for.
I love it. And that's the beautiful thing about Patrick Lencioni's book, The Ideal
Hmm.
Team Player, that
Yeah.
he talks about the first trait, humble, which you
Hmm.
just said, willingness to
Hmm.
learn,
Yeah.
willingness to be coached, someone that is lacking the ego so they could learn, and
Hmm.
they're less concerned about status and more concerned about growing as a human being.
Yes.
Um, and he also talks about they see themselves as part of the team, also knowing though that they're confident in their contributions and talents to the team.
Yeah.
because that's super important. Like the humble person is not the person that thinks less of themselves.
Yep.
There's that quote that C.S. Lewis says that humility is not thinking less of yourself, but it's thinking of yourself less.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And
I agree.
so especially if you're talking about your team, you want to be confident in your contributions,
Mm-hmm.
confidence in what you bring to the table, because we all want you to be, no
Yes.
matter who you are. Technician, look at if somebody is lacking like their strength and their confidence, the client is going to pick up on that. We need somebody that is strong and believes in
Mm-hmm.
themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Yet they have to balance that with, hey, I know I'm a big part of the team as well. And there's many
Yep.
people that make this ship work and make this ship stay afloat.
Yep.
And it's when, to me, Julie, someone gets the disease of me,
Mm-hmm.
where they stop remembering that, hey, there's a dispatcher that set me up on this call. There's a marketing team that got me this call that I didn't have. There's the warehouse person that put these parts and replenished the parts in my truck that I'm able to install in the client's home. We are all part of this huge team.
Mm-hmm.
And the humble person understands that.
Agreed. And I think, there are so many people, and there are people in the industry that have such depth of experience, right? I mean, I look at the GOAT Awards and I'm blown away, right, by
Yeah.
the amount of years of experience, the amount of revenue that an individual can generate, to really, help the business grow. But without being able to say, even though I can sell, write $4, $5, $6 million a year, I have to realize that there's a bigger part behind me that's helping me do that. And I think also, to tag on to everything that you said about the humble piece, it's also about willing to raise my hand and say, that was me. That was
Mm.
my mistake. I own that. That was my thing. When my kids were growing up, I always, would when they would start going down the blame game or everybody else, I literally would go and pick up a mirror and put it in front of their face.
Mm.
And I would say, remember, you're a part of that, right? We all play a role in that. And what role did you play? So I think even part of being humble too is being able to say, yeah, that was me. That bad's on me.
Yeah.
Even though I'm the smartest person in the room potentially, right? Which a lot of us are in our roles, without being able to say, I learned something from this experience, and part of the reason why I learned is because I was the one who made the mistake, or I'm
Cool.
humble enough to admit, I'm vulnerable enough to admit that, I'm not. I'm not as great as I think I am, and I do have capacity, still to learn, even if it's a small thing. The
Mhm.
capacity and the willingness to learn is so critical. And not to mention, we're in an ever evolving society, right? We're in an ever evolving industry. So we'll have to learn something new. And, we're going to get into, a little bit more about interviewing later in our conversation. But I think that sometimes, and even in his book, he talks a little bit about that the way we interview today has to look different than the way we did 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago. And if we get stuck in that rut, we're never going to find the right talent for our organization.
Mm. Boy, I want to ask uh, I want to ask you, Julie, how do you find out whether that someone has humility? But we need to first
Mhm.
cover all three traits. Okay,
Yes.
we need to I'm ready to jump and go, wait, how do you find out if somebody has that humility? So, gang, stay tuned. We're going to get to that, because that's like some of the
Right.
most important stuff that we're going to talk
Yep.
about today is what questions can you ask to find out if somebody has this humility? Because it's such a critical piece.
Hmm.
Second trait, Julie, that you mentioned, and Lencioni mentions it in Ideal Team Player, is, and you said it, the person's got to have, there's got to be an opportunity to grow. They want to grow.
Hmm. Yeah.
He phrases that as, we got to find somebody that's hungry. And they're hungry. They want more. And I will tell you, there is a very, very special company in Wrench Group started by a man by the name of Dewey Jenkins, who to me best depicts what an organization is truly established for.
Mm-hmm.
And it is designed to provide more.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. Provide more for its clients, provide more for its team members, and to provide more for its shareholders.
Mm-hmm.
It is there to provide more.
Mm-hmm.
So it's okay if we find team members, because we want to find team members who want more,
Correct.
who want opportunities to grow. Now, I'm dying already. I'm like, Julie, how do we find that? What questions do we ask? Okay, settle down, Kevin. Settle down. We're going to get there. We're going to get there. The trait, though, is hungry again.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to be clear, though, that there is that person out there. They are driven. They are achievers. I like to call it, they have a track record of success. Like, I want to identify successful people who have already had success in their career. Now, well, wait a second, Kevin. What if they're brand new entering into the job force? Well, where did they have success on the sports field? Where did show me success that maybe they had when they were taking piano lessons, or they were successful in band and they were able to do a solo, whatever it is. I want people that have a track record of success.
Mm-hmm.
And that to me tells me that, okay, when given the opportunity to grow, like Julie mentioned, they want it. They're hungry. They want more.
Agreed.
There's a healthy more hungry, and there's an unhealthy hungry that I want to just make sure we touch on really quick. The unhealthy hungry, well, let me just say that the healthy hungry is one that is manageable. It's sustainable. And you said it. It's the person that's sustainable for the long term. They're committed to doing great work consistently. That's a healthy type of hungry. The unhealthy type of hungry is work becomes too important. They're putting work above their health. They're putting work above their family. It consumes their identity and dominates their life. So just be aware that if you find that hungry person, you've got to ferret out okay, I love it. I've got this hungry person in front of me. Is it a healthy type of hungry or an unhealthy type of hungry?
Agreed. And it's interesting, and again, not to go too deep into the book, but having all three traits, which you'll probably talk about, is important, because I think you would agree, if you have that hungry person who also isn't humble, then they become a railroader, right? They're like doing it all for the wrong reasons, and hungry becomes egotistical. Right. And it can take that kind of path. I think it's really interesting to talk about hungry in this world of skilled trades, because I'm not sure that the world of skilled trades has met us at the fact that these are career opportunities. These are not jobs. This is not the first stop until I become who I really want to be when I grow up. There's a mind shift that I think has begun and needs to continue evolving with the folks in the leadership roles who are hiring these people. Have to realize that hungry is about wanting to be more than the person who is doing the, initial, installation, or the initial, troubleshooting. There is a path and there is a desire, and we have to share it and show it to move into those roles. Because those people who are hungry, if they're not getting fed, right, that there is a career, that there is life beyond, that there are people who have 20, 30-year careers making 6+ figure incomes as an opportunity in the skilled trades, we are going to lose those hungry people. So I think we have to remember that part of the conversation when we're looking for new talent is to embrace. We find out they're hungry. Now we have to embrace that hunger, and we have to feed it over the next years of a career that they're actually with us. And it starts at the interview, explaining what the career path is. We can help you be what you want to be when you grow up. And let me tell you stories of people who have done it really, really successfully.
Mm.
So if we don't feed into that hunger, we're going to lose those people to another place who can.
And Andrew has already, we've got the great article you wrote for
Yes.
Gen Z. And it specifically talks about career mapping. So if you want to see it, it's on, what's it called, Andrew? The stuff underneath the podcast?
Yeah, podcast show notes or YouTube description.
Okay, great. Also, you'll see a link to Ideal Team Player by Patrick Lencioni, so you can just get a copy of that book, and boy, oh boy, you'll love it. Okay, we're back on traits. Great. Just want to make sure we give a plug because I read your article that you wrote about Gen Z and career mapping. It's really good, and it's very much in line with what you were just sharing there. So great stuff. Great stuff. Okay, third trait. So humble, hungry, and smart. Smart. Interesting. Those of you that have heard my podcasts in the past, you're probably talking to the guy that was a C student in school. Okay, so smart. Okay. Yeah. What we're talking about here and what Lencioni does such a great job is people smart. People smart. This is someone that has a high EQ versus a high IQ. They have a high emotional quotient versus intelligent quotient. Having intelligent quotient is good, don't get me wrong. Yet emotional quotient, their ability to be able to work with people, their ability to be able to read the room, their ability to be able to have engaging conversations with people is so critical. Whereas if all they can do is talk about themselves, me. We've done podcasts on in the past that you can go look at, which is be more interested than interesting. Like that's the person we're looking for, the person that is more, it's more important that for them to find out about the other person across from them than sharing about themselves. Do you want to add any more on that, Julie?
Oh, I think that is not only quintessential in leadership, it's quintessential in successful interviewing. I mean, it's so important, and I know we're going to talk deeper into that. But that's really, when I listen to that podcast, and I think about that, we have to, listen more than we speak. And let me tell you something. My mother said to me when I was very young that this was going to be a struggle for me, and it has been my whole life. I really have to be very intentional in active listening. I'm struggling right now in this podcast because I've got so much to say, right? And I've got,
You're great.
so,
great.
that piece around active listening and being very interested in what the other person is saying, because we miss so much of the nuance in what people are saying when we're not really actively listening to them. And that includes turning our brain off about what we want to say next, when they are, actually, when they're actually speaking. And I think this is probably the hardest one because there is this is a hard one to just embrace when you're newly getting into the professional industry, understanding the nuance, because we're all living in a relatively siloed world of where we grew up and the people that we interact with. We enter, the professional realm, and now there's all these new opinions, all these new people, all these new perspectives, all these things coming at us. How do we exist? Because we all end up feeling very small, right? Because of that. So it is through time and it is through feedback. Why feedback and openness to learning is so critical. That's, I think, where we grow in that emotional intelligence and that EQ that we're actually talking about. So, it's hard to find it, when somebody who is young in their career, which we love to hire those young folks who are hungry, who are humble to do that. So, we need to make sure that we're making it make sense for where they are, in their point in the career. So smart is a really, a really challenging one, I think, to find. In that person, it's going to take a lot to get that out of them, and it may not come naturally, and it may take some training, it may take some feedback, it may take some education, but we can help them along in that path, and that's part of what we need to, again, explain to people as they grow in their career within skilled trades. We believe in that stuff too, even though we're not corporate America, right?
Right, right.
we do have those things that we're able to support people through, and I think our leaders need to embrace those things.
Yes. Well, you just said something, and I think it's a perfect lead in to kind of wrap up the book.
Mm,
The Ideal Team Player, Humble, Hungry, Smart. One of the things they talk about is what's the most important skill of these
mm,
three, or the most important trait.
yeah.
And you just said it. You just said it. And it's right in line with what Lencioni said. Someone's ability to be able to take feedback along their journey
Mm-hmm,
is the most important. And that is the ability for us to be humble,
mm-hmm,
to have humility.
mm-hmm.
And that's difficult for high type A people like Julie and like Kevin. It's difficult. It is.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so the other words you said were flat out. I got to be intentional. I
Mm-hmm,
got to be intentional to listen. So what I'm hearing you say, Julie, and for all high achievers, just the awareness
mm-hmm,
of knowing, you know
mm-hmm,
what? Sometimes I talk too much. Be aware of that, Kevin.
mm-hmm. Yeah.
Sometimes I need to shut up, Kevin. Like probably right now. like probably right now. Let my
I
guest
think as I
report.
was getting ready to meet with you, I was, thinking when was that time that feedback was most impactful to me? And
Mm,
if you really pause and think back on your career, and for those of you who are listening who are younger in your careers, think back to your teachers, think back to your parents, think back to your peers. You can really realize, and it really sets the stage for where you are. And I'll share with you two times. The first time for me was when I was in overseeing new executive leadership for Macy's, and it was a classroom setting. The newly graduated, kids from college came, and we had a 6-week training program for them. And I always would say, this is a safe space. I want you to be honest. You can tell me what's frustrating you. And they would come back and forth to their assigned locations, and we would have this experience. Well, a student shared with me a situation that I felt needed to be shared back with the location, and because it was impactful. And I went back and I shared it with the location. She was spoken to about this by the location president, and she came after me and was like, "You lied. You said this was safe. You said this, I was protected." So at that moment, even though she wasn't giving me feedback, it was resonating as big feedback that I got it. When I say something, I have to mean it and I have to commit to it. And I
mhm.
need to know that. Another time, and this really leads into knowing when to be quiet, is that, I was told in my Macy's career that my enthusiasm and passion is going to get in the way of my success. And man, that resonated deeply with me, and it really changed the way that I function in the professional and probably in the personal space as well. So I think sometimes we have to pause and think back to when feedback tapped us, if we are later in our careers, or if we don't have humility, right, naturally coming to us. We have to think back to when those times were, because they shape us for who we are. So I think it's important always to spend time reflecting, and really that you can uncover that in some interviewing techniques through that we'll get into, is really have people think back on past experiences, because as you and I both know, past experience predicts future behavior.
Yes,
right?
sir.
And that's what we need to uncover. So, hearing what those things were that were turning points in somebody's career to align them to hungry, humble, and smart in the interview process is really a very effective tool. So I
Great.
probably am jumping ahead, which I seem to keep doing.
No, you're doing great. I love the two great stories. Two great stories. So I want to kind of switch to the interview.
Okay.
I want to get into that because we got an expert here, Andrew. Let's get into that. I want to talk about. I'm now a manager, and I'm ready to interview somebody. And what's my mentality
Mm-hmm.
got to be going into an interview?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And Lencioni talks a little bit about this in the book.
Yeah.
And I have such strong opinions on this that I have to coach. I've had to coach my managers on many, many times
Mm-hmm.
when I've been the second person who interviewed, when I've been the second person to interview the person that they already interviewed
Right.
because they didn't find out anything,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
but they
Yeah.
told me they had a great interview.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Julie, it was because they did all the talking. They
Right.
did all the selling.
Right.
And
Yeah.
they felt so good when they came out of the interview.
Right.
What?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting. I always find that the type of interviewer somebody is also the type of coach they are, right? That they tend to, you know, speak a lot, tell people in the coaching realm, tell people what they should be doing and say, right? You agree? Okay, good. And now you're coached, right? In the interview, it's the same thing. I ask my series of questions and I'm like, okay, check, check, check. And okay, they're good. They're good to go. Yep, in. And I want to respect something for just a minute before we go down this path. I
Mhm.
know, and I'm speaking directly to my hiring managers out there and my recruiting team. I know that speed in our industry is critical
Mm.
because the struggle is real. There's a lot of openings that need to be filled here at our competitors everywhere. And speed seems to be, especially in this time of the year in shoulder season, or not in shoulder season, I'm sorry, in season, that we got to fill these openings. Demand is exceeding capacity. It's exceeding capacity. So speed to hire seems to become more important than it needs to be. But we've got to slow down just a little, just a little, and really take the time to interview these folks for all aspects of what it will take for them to be successful, which includes the softer side of the skill set. If I'm great at troubleshooting and repairing, but I have no ability to speak to our customers, we're not going to get the lead generation that we need to drive the business forward, right? That's one example. So we have to vet for the full person, even though speed, I understand, is paramount. Which I could talk about for hours, but I won't. So going back to, I think, talking about what does it take to, really, what does the interview need to look like,
Can I comment
first
on
and foremost,
something? Can I
yeah,
comment on something
sure,
before you?
yeah,
Like
good. So I
I
can take a
know.
drink of water.
Yes, yes. Well, you just I think it's so powerful that you just spoke right to your team.
Yeah. Mm,
That is so awesome. What I heard you say is a term they use in the military,
hmm
and it's this: slow is smooth, smooth is fast.
mm,
Slow is smooth, smooth is fast. So take your time, be intentional, be diligent, follow the process, and just understand that when you do that, you will accomplish the goals that you want to accomplish. You can only take care of the 3 feet around you
hmm Right.
amongst all the chaos. And we got 100 spots we got to hire. You just manage the 3 feet around you.
hmm
And I want to just share one other thing with your team.
hmm
And it's something that's in a book, which I'd like to put in our podcast notes, called Uncontainable, written
mm,
by Kip Tyndall. To me, it's the gentleman that started the Container Store. He happened to be roommates at the University of Texas with the gentleman that started Whole Foods. So they were roommates.
Wow.
Imagine what that room was like. The guy who started
Yeah.
the Container Store. So Kip Tyndall's book called Uncontainable talks about at the Container Store, which is retail, no different than us, you guys. We are retail. We are retail. We are not a contracting company because retail, in my mind, works when the clients want us. Contracting works when the contractors want to work. Retailers have to be open on Saturdays, Sundays, in the evenings when the clients want us. So we are in as much of the retail business as Macy's is. Let me assure you,
Yep.
we are in the retail business. So the concept that Kip talked about, Julie, was 1 equals 3.
Okay.
That is one of their core pillars. 1 great team member equals 3 mediocre team members.
Mm.
So if you take what Julie said, her approach, which is slow down to make sure we find that 1, you just reduced your workload by 1/3.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yes.
1 great team member is going to equate to 3 mediocre. So if you've got 100 spots to fill, you can hire 33 great team members that can take the load of 100 mediocre average team members. Because the reality is you're never going to get 100 great ones. When they say we got to hire 100, there's zero expectation that there's going to be 100 great ones. It doesn't happen. Look
Yep.
at any organization in Wrench. Look at the list right now. Boy, I wish they were all 100 great ones. They're not.
Right.
But if you slow down, like Julie is saying, and take your time and ask the right questions, 1 equals 3. And there is so much more on this in that book,
Yeah.
Uncontained.
That's great. One of the things that when I started in the organization and I went and visited many of our partner businesses, and the feedback that I got almost consistently was, Julie, we just need more candidates. Just get me more candidates. If you get me more candidates, we're going to be able to fill the openings. Just get me more candidates. I just need more candidates. And I listened and I smiled and I said, okay, okay. And what that has evolved into, and I hope, is that why the recruiting role and why our recruiters are so important to the success of the business is that it's our job to get all the candidates, right? Our job is to take those 50 applications and get them down for you, hiring manager, to like 7 to 10 or 5 to 10, to what you're saying, right? The 1 to the 3, right? You can get so many applications, but if we can send you 5 to 7 people or 5 to 10 people that we've vetted well enough for you, then our job that's what our job is to make it easier for you so that there's a balance of quality and quantity. You don't need to interview 25 people to fill 3 openings when you have a full-time talented recruiter like we have in our organization, right? They're doing that vetting for you. So let us do that and help you get to that 1 so that, you can hire those folks that are there. We're using the tools that we're going to talk a little bit about here about how an interview can be conducted, because we know you still need to take those 10 to 5, and we need your partnership. We need our hiring managers to tell us that those are the right people. So we bring you more of those. So it's a collaboration between recruiter and hiring manager. But I do think there's an opportunity when it gets to the hiring manager. I think that stress level comes up because they're the ones who have to meet the demand, right? So they're like, yeah, they're fine. Let's hire them. Without doing that full cyclical, vetting that needs to happen. The vision for the recruiting organization is to find qualified talent that sticks. And that sticks is so critical, and you're not going to get the ones that stick if you're only hiring for the skill.
what I love is this whole time we've been talking about the why is recruiting important and why is it important to look for these 3 traits and what are these 3 traits?
Yeah.
And I want to finish up and talk about the importance of approaching the interview a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to wrap up the why section of our podcast.
Yeah.
And then what we're going to do is we're going to come back on our next episode and really dig in to the how. How do you find out if somebody is hungry? Humble. How do you find out, and what questions do you ask to find out if somebody is hungry? And what questions do you ask to find out if somebody is smart? And again, remember, people smart. So
Yes.
we're just going to about ready to wrap up the why part of our discussion, and let's take it to the interview. And I want to just start with something, and then I want you, because I know you believe in this, because we talked about this before. Philosophically, when I'm getting ready to go into an interview, I am adamant that our managers, first and foremost, are buyers. Be the buyer. There is zero reason for you to be a seller of our company. This person, if I'm interviewing Julie has to, I'm buying. I got to decide if I'm, as the interviewing manager, am I buying Julie? Do I want Julie to be part of my team? So that's what I mean when I say be the buyer. You're not selling at all, hiring manager. You're not. At least in my opinion, Julie, and I'd love to get your feedback, at least for first significant part of the interview.
Yeah. I agree. So I agree and I disagree with your statement. And when we were talking previously, we kind of ran into this. I 100% agree that, we have to look at when we get into the interview, we are responsible to determine if this person is going to be the best fit for the success of my team, inclusive of their soft skills, their hard skills, their culture fit, all of those things. So yes, there is a piece of the buy that comes with that. And that has to be in the front end. And we do that, as we said, with an 80-20 split. A lot of it is listening and 20% of it's talking. But I do think that there is a sales aspect to the interview that maybe there never has been before. And that is because the struggle to find talent is so real, and that the best people that we bring to our hiring managers are likely already working. Okay. They are in the job. They are successful in their job, and they are the talent that we seek. So when you get into that interview, I got to be able to kind of flip the script, which we'll go into deeper, but I got to flip the script to give them a chance to be, the person that they want to work for. Why do I want to work for Service Champions? Why do I want to work for Parker? Why do I want to work for Berkey's to leave this pretty good place that I already have here, right? So we have to set that stage for them so that there is a desire, that there is an interest, that this is going to be a better move for them in the long run. And the hiring manager needs to be able to set that stage. And it goes all the way back to the EVP, the employee value proposition that the company already has in place, right? We have to be able to sell them on that. So there is an aspect of selling, I think, as well, in this new world that we're living in, of this incredible talent shortage that we have within the skilled trades. So I think we agree, and on that the buy is important to get to, but we've also got to be salespeople at some point in the interview if we want to get the best talent out there, because they're already working.
I wholeheartedly agree, and you bring up a great point when you're talking specifically about somebody that is probably a great team member somewhere else.
Sure.
Like they're already working. You bring up a great point. Like, I need to understand what the career opportunities are here in the
Mm-hmm.
trades
Mm-hmm.
before I leave my current position. So
Right.
there is absolutely 100% a sales job there that has to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
I want to make sure you and I are fully aligned there. What I want to make sure, though, that our recruiters and our hiring managers understand is a lot of times people sell themselves
Mm-hmm.
when you allow them to talk.
Mm-hmm.
Their emotions are firing.
Mm-hmm.
You give them what I call psychological air in the interview. You show them that you're interested in them
Mm-hmm.
because it's very rare in today's
Yeah.
world. They're going to be like, wow, uh, no one has really ever shown that much interest in me that
Yeah.
Mercedes did. They made me really feel like an important person. And all Mercedes did was actively and intently listen. So
Mm-hmm.
there's a double edge. It's the exact same thing that we teach our salespeople in a home is
You bet.
when you ask the right questions to a client and they are talking about their situation and what they want, and you paint the picture. Yes, you do paint the picture of what a better future can look like for them in the home.
Mm-hmm.
100%. Just like you said, you paint a future picture of what it can look like to come work at one of our wrench companies.
Mm-hmm.
100%. You got to do that. You got to paint the picture of a better future.
Mm-hmm.
At the same token, sales today is different than it used to be in the past, where a sales guy used to think I need to be the talker. I got to talk all the
Sure.
time. Hey, I got to be slick because the clients, they needed that because they didn't have any information. Let
Mm-hmm.
me assure you today,
Mm-hmm.
our clients and our candidates have all the information. So
They
it's
sure
no
do.
longer buyer beware like it used to be in the 70s when the sales guy had all the, I got all the stuff you need here, Mrs. Jones, and they'd close their jacket, and it's
Right.
buyer beware because the salesperson was in control. Well,
Mm-hmm.
today the customer knows everything. They can go online and
Yeah.
get everything about our company, about our products, so it is now seller beware.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yeah.
it's me it's seller beware, and the same thing applies in the interview process that if you can show interest to that candidate like no one else can, and you sincerely listen to them, and you sincerely have a concern and a yearn to want them to have a better opportunity, that's going to come
Mm-hmm.
through recruiting
Yeah.
managers. That's going to come through recruiters. And
Yeah.
so I just want to make sure, Julie, that you and I are on the same page, that is also a part of the selling process.
100%. And, it's interesting because I think we forget that also candidates are doing their due diligence before they come to the interview. They're looking at the career pages. They're looking at the Glassdoors. They're looking at Indeed. They're looking at these third party job boards. And our presence on those boards is incredibly important because if we don't resonate with them, from the way we support communities, from the way that we are an employee-centric organization, from, compensation, all of those things. If we don't resonate for them, they're not going to hit that button that says apply, just like
Mm,
they're not going to hit that button that says give me a quote on the
mm,
consumer side. So it's so much the same. So yes, they walk into that much smarter than they did a few years ago, right? And
yes.
and I also appreciate the human connection, the way that you described, Mercedes and the way that she recruits and many of our other recruiters also recruit is because so many people are getting jaded by the fact that AI is doing so much of the recruiting and you still need that human connection.
Mm,
And we are the humans, the
mm,
hiring managers, the recruiters are the humans that are there. So we need to keep that connection available and show that we care. And it really, how they their experience in the interview, Kevin, wouldn't you agree, is going to determine whether they say yes at the end of it and decide to be an employee with the organization.
100%.
Yeah.
They are. I remember when I was rushing a fraternity,
Mhm.
and in a fraternity there's an interview process for 2 weeks. 2 weeks. You're
Yeah.
in front, and you're meeting the rush chairman more than anybody else, and he's the guy. He's the person. He is the
Mhm.
recruiter, the main
Mhm.
recruiter,
Mhm. Sure.
and your everything pretty much. Yes, you meet the other people in the fraternity for sure, but he's he's got to be the guy that you want to follow and the pinnacle guy. And wow, can I see myself associating and being a part of a organization that would
Sure.
employ him or put him in that position? Same thing with our recruiting team.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yep.
you are so critical to the
Mhm.
organization. I remember the guy, Greg Jamrose. He's the guy that was the recruiting. He was the rush chairman, and I still have a picture of him and going, yeah, that guy's a badass. I want to be a part of. I want to be a part of
Sure.
the fraternity that he's in.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Yep.
so
Yep.
so okay,
And the
so
and the and the hiring manager typically is who is going to be managing you.
mhm,
So there is a chemistry that has to happen on both sides. So they're looking at just like your explanation in the fraternity, that candidate, we have to remember, is looking at that hiring manager saying, is this the guy or gal that I really want to spend the next 10 years with? Is this the
yes.
organization that resonates with me that I want to build my career with? So we have to make sure that, all of that is being shared in the interview. And that's why it can't take 15 minutes.
Mm,
Right. And we'll go into how we can, I know in our next segment, how we can really create that experience. And it doesn't need to take 2 hours. It doesn't need to take a long time if you're using your time wisely. So,
mm,
but
mm.
100%, there has to be some sort of chemistry in that interview that makes sense for this person to move forward, not just because they can turn a wrench or diagnose a problem or answer a call quickly. It has to be all encompassing.
Show genuine care.
Hmm.
Show
Yeah.
genuine concern. If you're the hiring manager and you're constantly looking at your phone in the
Ugh,
middle of the interview, or you
right.
even have your phone anywhere near you, it's like in an interview, focus is a superpower.
Hmm.
It is a differentiator. It is like so important and so critical. And a couple of the other things that are just like table stake, which is that we've already mentioned, make sure you're talking 20% of the time
Hmm.
and the candidate is talking 80% of the time.
Hmm.
Yes, like Julie said, there is a time where you need to sell the dream. You need to
Hmm.
sell what a better future looks like. 100%. This is a person that is leaving probably a great job.
Hmm.
You got to get good at it and
Hmm.
practice because it's hard to pull great people away from very well-paying jobs. It's difficult. The other thing is that I just want to wrap up with a story.
Hmm.
Um, I remember specifically a candidate that I interviewed who told me, okay, let me back up. I also believe, Julie, that if I have a great connection with you
Hmm.
in the interview process and we become friends,
Hmm.
you are going to share things with me that maybe you shouldn't share. Meaning
Sure.
you're going to share some past experiences like, I had a tough job. I had a tough time with my last boss. He was kind of a jerk, but we got to this level of intimacy that we got this to this level of connection where all of a sudden, and it's to my advantage as an interviewer, the
Hmm.
interviewee begins to share and I begin to find out stuff because of my ability to want to get um, connected with this person.
Hmm.
Got to make sure that if you're the interviewer, you don't get too emotional and too caught up either.
Hmm.
You got to remember what you're there for. It's a
Sure.
business. I mean,
Yeah.
you're there to transact At the same token, it takes talent and a skill to look to make a connection, knowing that, hey, if I make a really great connection, I might be able to find things out. In this story I'm about ready to share, this is exactly what happened. I had a great meeting with this person, a great interview, found out that they had some past convictions, found out that they had skipped out on and didn't show up at work, and abandoned their last job. None of that I got from the first manager that interviewed him.
Mm-hmm.
And the first manager that interviewed him actually said they had a great interview with them. I go back and I talk to the person that was with them. There was two people in that interview. One of them did most of the talking.
Mm-hmm.
And I just say, give me a sense of how Jeff, who was conducting the interview, who's the manager that conducted the interview, give me a sense, how much did Jeff talk versus the candidate? The person's response to me was, a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So Jeff's impression of a great interview was Jeff doing all the talking. And Jeff even told me, God, he felt so good in the interview. Well, Jeff felt good because Jeff was talking and Jeff was sharing about probably Jeff.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Didn't find anything else out about the candidate. And that just blew me away. But it just told me that, wow, Kevin, you have to do a better job of training and educating your managers. And it forever changed. That interaction forever changed this concept of, wait, we got to be the buyer. We're not the seller. We're buying.
Mhm.
Be the buyer, ask the right questions, and also be very pragmatic and intentional that you're there with an objective to do business. Julie, it's no different than our salespeople that get too emotional with the client and they forget that they're there to do business. It is great to have a wonderful relationship with your client. Fantastic. Never forget you're there to transact business. You don't make money. We don't keep our installers busy. There's no additional work for anybody in the office unless you make a deal. You got to bring it across the goal line. Same thing with our recruiters.
Agreed. Yep, agreed. We have to peel back that onion, right? We got to get to the reality of what it is. And and again, that begins to build trust in that this is the kind of place that I want to work at too. That it really creates that picture, for as we talked about, the first impression is interview number one with the recruiter, right? That's where it begins. And we have to make sure that that's mirrored through the entire process. And the other thing too, Kevin, I think that's so critical, a reason why many people leave an organization is because, and I can't tell you how many times I've heard it, the way that they described the job in the interview is not the way the reality was of that. So we got to spend the time making sure that everybody's expectations are super clear, right? Patrick even talks about it in his book. We have to really make sure that everybody's expectations and everything's out at the interview, because we want both hiring manager leader of that person and the candidates to be on the same page from day one. So we have to set those expectations. And again, that goes back to the two-way conversation, and we have to listen, and then we can help overcome some of those concerns that they have or some things that they didn't like. When we hear that, we ask more probing questions to really understand it, but we can also then use that information to help understand what kind of person they're going to be and how and if we want to take on that responsibility, right? In this potential new hire. And I think we sometimes forget about that because we just want to get that warm body into a truck because demand is exceeding capacity right now. Slow down, right? Slow down just a little bit.
So I keep saying I want to wrap up this This is so good. I don't want to close this one out. Um, you just reminded me of something I shared with my nephew. It's actually
Mhm.
something I learned before I married my wife, Carolyn. My mentor, Ron McCann, had a conversation with me, and I joke all the time with people and I say, my wife, she loved me on our honeymoon. Frickin' loved me. She loved me. And then, 6 months into the marriage, I started leaving socks around. Things got tough, but because when people, especially new team members, come up to me and they say, God, I love it here. I love it here. I always will share that. Listen, my wife loved me on our honeymoon. Let's check back in with me in 6 months or a
Mhm.
year. But make sure you let me know if there's things that aren't meeting your expectation. We could talk about them. We talk
Mhm.
about it. So knowing expectations up front when you're about ready to get married is what I shared with my nephew,
Mhm. Mhm.
me. And he said, Ron said to me, and I shared it with Matthew, make sure before you get married, your wife and you have a conversation about her falling in love with who you're going to become,
Mhm.
not who you're going to be, not who you are today.
Mhm.
Because you're not going to be the same as you are like 10 years from now, 15
Mhm.
years from now, 20 years from now. And when I got married to Carolyn, I was 28 years old, and I knew I had entrepreneurialism in me and doing a business. And was it going to be all unicorns and rainbows, Julie?
Probably not.
No. She needed to know, hey, look, I want you to know, honey, and have a conversation about falling in love with who I'm going to become, not with who I am. And
Mhm.
what I'm hearing you say is the same thing applies
Mhm.
in the interview process.
Yeah.
You want to make sure this person understands very clearly the expectations of what the job is.
Mhm. 100%. And I think if there's a disconnect there, and we're not making that the truth and the reality when they land into the role because we sold it too much to my idea of selling the job. If we oversell it and the reality is it's not what it really is, then we've also created a disconnect and we're going to
Yeah.
have turnover. And that's not, what we want ultimately when we talk about, finding qualified talent that sticks. That sticks piece is so critical to the evolution of the entire TA process. That, if we miss that, we're going to have the turnover that we're just going to be backfilling. And then we're into this level of stress again of having the wrong team on the wrong, in the wrong job. And we'll just stay in this, cycle of constantly, filling talent because we're backfilling instead of creating an incredible experience for the customer so we can grow that business. Because the
Where
people play a massive, right? We play a massive role in the future of the organization and the growth of the business.
massive, like 33% massive.
Right. Exactly.
33%. Only if you believe in McDonald's. They've
I know.
done pretty well.
Yeah,
They've done
that's
pretty
true.
well. So
Yeah.
what I just heard you say is when you're having that conversation with your future wife or future husband, or for me, if my wife, make sure she knows you're going to leave some socks around, right? That is not
Probably
going to
should.
be all
Yeah.
unicorns and rainbows.
No.
Yeah, that's
That's why
great.
for those of us who are on our second marriages, it's much, much better.
Yes, yes. All right. So, Julie, that what a wonderful first episode for this two-part series on hire with attitude or hire for attitude, train for skill, hire for the smile, train for skill.
Mhm.
These type of episodes clearly live up to um, making our companies better,
Mhm.
making our people better, and having a bigger future. And that's what
Mhm.
we're all about uh, with this podcast, Julie. So, team, here's to a bigger future.
Amen.
Thanks, Julie.
Thank
See
you.
you. See you on the next episode.